Welcome back, painting friends. Today we're going to paint a fun little pumpkin picture with some words in the background. What are you going to need today? Well, we're going to need gray, white, black, orange, red, yellow, brown, teal, and I just realized that I forgot to add green paint to it. So make sure you add some green paint to your palette. Brushes I use, I always have my favorite 4 brushes, my 1-inch flat brush, my 10-6, and 1 round brush. Don't forget to have a cup of water and a rag for keeping those brushes clean. So let's get started. We're going to start by painting our entire canvas gray. So I'm going to take my 1-inch flat brush and paint everything gray. I am not going to wipe my brush off at all. Instead, I'm just going to take that 1-inch flat brush and I'm going to add little spots of brown, yellow, white, and black to my background. And I'm going to use the least amount of black because it is the strongest color. But all I'm doing is taking that brush, I'm just stomping small little 1-inch spots of color onto my background. With all of those colors on there, I'm now going to take that brush and just pull those colors one side down, then up, then down, then up through this entire canvas. What that does is it's going to start to give us our wood grain look. So just make sure you're going up in one direction and then back down in the next direction, all the way across your canvas. After that, we are going to go ahead and wash off our paintbrush, and we're going to do the same thing with a teal color. So with that teal, we are going to take that same brush and we are going to drop spots of color on it. We want a little bit more teal than we had the other colors. And then we're going to go through and we're going to brush up and brush down and smooth out those colors, and our wood grain will be about finished. Now I'm going to take that clean 1-inch flat brush and put some watered down black and gray paint on it. This is where we're going to make our wood slats. So when you have that black and gray on there, I think I need to replace that brush. When I have my black and gray on there, I'm just going to hold it perpendicular to my canvas and pull straight lines down. Now remember, we are creating a wood background, so the lines don't have to be straight. With the wood background finish, we're going to grab some brown paint on that 1-inch flat brush and just pull it across while that paint is still wet. This is going to be the table that our pumpkins are going to sit on. We're going to pull that brown straight across, letting it mix with that gray, and then for fun, let's add a little bit of black in. I went ahead and let my canvas dry, but let's put these pumpkins in here. I'm going to use my number 6 round brush and some orange paint. Now I'm going to put one big pumpkin on the left and a smaller one on the right, because I want to keep some space at the top for my words. So with that orange brush, we are going to start at the top with a dot, and then pumpkins have a bump going off to one side of the dot, and down around, another bump, kind of looks like a tall letter C. We're going to copycat that on the other side. Now for my smaller pumpkin, it's going to be the same way, but I want it to be tilting in towards that bigger pumpkin. So kind of going towards that bigger pumpkin. We're going to make these bumps a little wider. So here's going to be my dot, and we're going to make that bump wider all the way down, maybe even off of the canvas. Other side, same thing, maybe down all the way off the top of that canvas. We're going to have them connect in the middle. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and paint these pumpkins in orange before we start adding our details. I'm going to show you how to make these ribs of our pumpkin now. So we're going to take a little bit of brown paint, which we'll cover up later, and we are going to make these curved lines to show where our pumpkin ribs are. So starting at the top where that dot was, I'm just going to make a long skinny curved line going down and then copycat it on the other side. Now my big pumpkin is going to have 2 lines on each side. If your pumpkin's a little bigger, you may need to add 3. For my small pumpkin, I am going to put 3 on there. So we're going to start with our first 2 that kind of copycat each other, and then I'm going to add 2 more on each side. Now let's talk about adding some color to our pumpkins. I'm going to start off with my number 6 round brush, and I am going to use some yellow paint right in the middle of my pumpkin. Right down in the center of my pumpkin, some yellow paint. This is going to be the brightest spot of my pumpkin as far as the regular color goes. Now you have a choice of making yours with brush strokes or smoothing them out. I'll show you both options, and that way you could decide. Take some red paint and go right along those ribs of the pumpkin because that's going to be a little bit darker than the center. Then I can use my orange paint to blend all of these colors together. Now if you want a pumpkin that's a little darker, add more red. If you want a pumpkin that's a little lighter, add more yellow to it. But if you want to have these brush strokes in there, you just want to make sure that as you're blending, you don't overblend. You let those brush strokes kind of show through to give your pumpkin that texture. We'll finish off by adding a little bit of white as the highlight to the top of the pumpkin. It just kind of brings the pumpkin alive having that white up there. And again, I'm just using small brush strokes so that I can see all of that texture on the pumpkin. So that is how we have the textured paintbrush stroke part of the pumpkin. Let's make this next section nice and smooth so you can decide which one you want. We're going to start the exact same way. We're going to start with yellow right down the center. Again, the more yellow you have, the brighter your pumpkin is going to be. Then we're going to go in with that red paint and go right along the ribs of that pumpkin. We'll use that orange paint as our blender. And this time when we start to blend in, we might start with the brush strokes a little bit, but as we move into the final stages of the blending, we're going to have really tall, long brush strokes to kind of blend all of that together. Now, if you think you lost some of that yellow, it's not a big deal. You could just add some right back on top to make it a little bit brighter. We'll finish this section off with the white at the top of our pumpkin for our highlight as well. It's a little bit of white paint in my brush. Now I like to start at the top of my brush, or at the top of my pumpkin, bring some of those colors down, but then sometimes I'll reverse it and I'll pull some of that orange and yellow color up into my white so that I don't bring that white down too far. This does take a while to blend it till you like it, so I'm going to jump into speed motion and finish out my pumpkins. With a dry background, let's go ahead and put our pumpkin stalks in. I'm going to use black paint, and sometimes I like to water my black paint down to make it a little smoother. So with my number 6 round brush and some watered down black paint, we are going to put our pumpkin stalk right up here. And the pumpkin stalk grows from these little ribs. So I'm going to first make my rectangle up here. You know, easy peasy pumpkin stalk. And if I want to, I can get a little crazy and flip it around and then connect it where it's going to get skinnier. And paint that whole space in black. And then right down here at the base, any place where the ribs are, where I had that brown paint originally, I'm just going to make a little point on that stalk so you could see where it's connected. Now, imagine if we were to take the top of that twist and kind of push it to the other side and add a couple of spirals on there so that it looked like a pumpkin vine. Now I want to keep the top of my canvas open for my words, so when I do my next stalk, I want to make sure it goes towards my tall pumpkin instead of the opposite direction. So same thing, I'm just going to start with a rectangle, and then I have to decide if I want to add a loop on the top or not. Of course I want to add a loop. Add some fun little vines coming off of that loop, and then go ahead and connect that and paint it in. Making sure that I finish off the bottom where the ribs of the pumpkin have that little black point to them from my stalk. I'm now going to take some watered down black paint on my number 6 brown brush. I'm going to outline where those original brown lines were. I'm going to make sure that this entire pumpkin and all of the ribs have a really nice, good black outline to them. Now with that same watered down black paint, we're going to go ahead and add in some branches for our greenery to go on. These branches can cover up any spot of your pumpkin you don't love, or you can skip this part totally, completely up to you. I like to just take some branches. I like to start at the edge of the branch and pull it back into the main part of the stick. So we're going to have one big branch down here, and then I might add one or two up at the top of my pumpkin just to fill some of that space in. But remember, you're going to put words on here. Don't get crazy with these. For the green part of them, I'm going to take some white and green and mix them together. And then I'm just going to use my number 6 round brush as almost a stamp. So all I'm doing is taking that brush and setting it down and letting the shape of the brush be the shape of my leaves. So for my light green leaves, I'm going to put them right down here at the bottom of my pumpkin. And then of course, I'm going to switch over to those pussy willows as well. I'm going to take a little bit of watered down brown paint at the bottom of each of these green pieces just to give it a little shadow. I'll go ahead and add a little bit of white to the top as well. I'm going to take a little bit of that teal and add it to the bottom of my white pussy willows just to give them that very light shadow look. Now let's add in here all of these beautiful vines. So with my number 6 round brush, I'm going to make my large vines first. I'm just going to take some vines, and any place I want them to go, I'm just going to twirl and twist these vines around. Now what's fun about this is once you have the big vine on, then you can add those itty bitty baby vines. You can try it with your number 6 round brush, or you can switch over to a smaller brush and you can add these little vines anywhere you want them to go. Now that our vines are finished, let's go ahead and add some highlights with a little bit of white paint on my number 6 round brush, any place that's at the top or maybe even where my vines kind of go over each other. I can add a small white highlight just to bring them to life. Now, as far as my stalk goes, I want to make sure that I've got highlights that show where the ribs are not. So right where the white is on the top of my pumpkin, I'm just going to use very, very, very light lines going up and following that stalk. So think about like little fairy feet dancing, okay? You don't want to have your brush all the way in your canvas. You want to have your brush barely touching your canvas and pull those white lines from the pumpkin on up. It's time to add my words, so let's pop the canvas down. I'm going to use a Sharpie to write the words "give thanks." You do not have to add words on here, but if you want to, you left that space open. So I'm going to make my "give" nice tall letters, and my "thanks" is going to be in cursive. Now remember, when you're finished, you need to sign your name. I never get to see what you're painting at home unless you post it to my Facebook page, Painting with a Purpose. Make sure that you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Painting with a Purpose, so you're kept up to date on all of the tutorials. And remember, as always, stay kind, stay creative, and stay safe. Have a great day, friends. Bye now.